welcome to LaunchLeft, an intentional space for art and activism, a podcast label, a launch pad for left-of-center artists. Our guest today is Aloe Blacc, musician and activist. I'm really excited to speak to him. Please welcome him to the show. But first, rate and subscribe. Follow us on all socials at LaunchLeft. Welcome to the show, Aloe Blacc. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much.
I have so many questions, but I want to start with your record that you just put out. And it's the first record you've put out in a minute. It's been 7 years. And I'm just curious what propelled you to want to make this record now, and what is this record about?
So this is my first album in 7 years. Coincidentally, my daughter is 7 years old. So in between time, I've been focusing a lot on family and personal relationships while making music, still traveling, still sharing my performances with audiences across the world, but also just being particularly, focused on parenting. I grew up in a family where my dad was in the Marine Corps, and as a Marine, he would travel a lot and be away a lot. And since I have the same kind of occupation, but not the same necessity, I don't necessarily need to be away all the time. And so I made the conscious decision, along with my wife, that, I'd be home more than away and not get sucked into rock star lifestyle of just traveling and being away all the time, being present for the family.
And in that 7 years, were you kind of writing and stowing away songs, or did it just all happen in a burst?
Writing and stowing away songs. I've had so many songs over that time, so many different projects I could have released, different themes to those projects. But in the end, I felt that after 10 years of marriage, 7 years of being a parent, that it was time for me to be a bit more, candid about my life and share some of the reality that I'm experiencing.
Was that hard for you at all?
I don't think it was too hard. I still haven't gone as deep as I probably can. I think it's still very surface level, but it's definitely not trying to portray the single man lifestyle, that ultimately would have been part of my first solo album and then and my second solo album. But on this third album, or on my third album, I was married, but I didn't have kids and I was newly married. On this album, it's a whole new experience. So I feel like it's important for my audience to grow with me, and I've got to tell those stories. There are other kinds of themes and styles that I do that don't express so much about my personal life. So I feel like an album called All Love Everything with the songs that are on it is the right message for now.
If you don't mind me taking it back a ways, I'd love to hear how music found you.
I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and the expression and experience of music that I feel was most profound was breakdancing to hip hop music with the kids on the block. So I'd go outside, and the older kids and a couple not much older than me would be breakdancing on cardboard on the sidewalk. And that gave me a sense of the beauty of what music can be, a communal experience, a physical experience, and not just an oral experience or an experience that you receive with your ears. So then the music that I would hear when I went to family parties, my parents are from Central America, from Panama. They listened to a lot of Caribbean and Latin music, and those songs would be blasting out of speakers while all the kids were running around having fun. And I got to see my parents having fun to music. And that was another profound moment for me. And I think after that, the next would be, in elementary school, 3rd grade, when I started playing the trumpet, decided that I wanted to learn an instrument, and started to learn that I didn't have to be a passive listener of music or someone who's just expressing myself through dance, I could actually produce music.
And was trumpet your first instrument, or was it piano? Did you end up learning piano? Yeah. What was your first instrument?
Trumpet ended up being my first instrument. And I played from, through elementary school up to high school until I decided I wanted to just focus on hip hop. Because at the same time I picked up the trumpet, I started writing lyrics, rap lyrics. And then by the time I got to the middle of high school, I met a DJ named Exile, and we started recording songs together. So it ended up being a moment where I just started focusing on the lyrics and no longer on playing the trumpet.
I know you spoke about music and how it influenced you, but the written word and including that and being a songwriter, was that something that happened around that age too, really young, or did you do that more in your 20s that it became that you started writing?
No, I started writing when I was 9.
Wow.
It was just like rap lyrics that sounded like they could have been LL Cool J's rap lyrics. And then I started developing my own style, or at least adopting other rappers' styles. So by the time I was 15, I had my own sense of self and my own sense of lyricism, and was making music that was being appreciated by not just my friends in high school, but by the local hip hop community in my area. And then I think a year later, we recorded a mixtape of about 45 minutes worth of music. So my DJ friend said we should press this up on a cassette and sell it. And we took it to a breakdancing convention called B-Boy Summit, and we sold 500 mixtapes of our own music. And then, from there, we just kept on making music and never stopped, and kept developing my skill. But because we were sampling from so many different genres, classic rock, classic soul, R&B, and bossa nova, we were just sampling from everything, and I was learning a lot about songs structure and songwriting from the artists we were sampling from. I fell into this moment where I was just absorbing everything from singer-songwriters like Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, Cat Stevens, Elton John and Bernie Taupin, Stevie Wonder, Nina Simone, and learning Bill Withers, learning everything about that method of writing, which was different from what I was doing in hip-hop. Just around that time, my dad bought a piano, and so I started trying to play piano and write folk songs on the piano.
And this is before YouTube, am I right?
This is, years before YouTube. This is still around the end of the 90s, early 2000s.
So this is probably with real vinyl or cassettes or CDs.
Mixtape. When I say mixtape, I mean real cassette. 45 minutes on a 90-minute cassette. On the A side was a DJ mix of all the other really cool hip hop that was going on. And then the B side, 45 minutes, was our own original music.
Wow. Do you still have any of those tapes?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have the tapes. We still have all the 4-track tapes. We would record onto a Tascam Porta-Studio 4-track where we only had one track for the beat, the drums from a drum loop record, one track for the sample from some other record, and then a track for vocals and a track for ad-libs or scratches. And
wow. I love that. I have that exact 4-track, so I know exactly what you're talking about. An incredible technology when you think about it, analog and lo-fi, but it's like that you could record 4 tracks on a cassette tape. Still boggles the mind.
For me, the beginning of my career, it was the beginning of my learning, my experience, the beginning of my 10,000 hours, which, I credit that to where I am today because music was not going to be my career. I was just doing it as a hobby. I was having fun with it. I was with my collaborators, I was excelling at it, but I went to university and left university and got a job in corporate America after I graduated, but I got laid off, so I had the opportunity to fall back on music just as a to pass the time until I got another job, and I never had to work again.
You know, you're out of a job, and so of course the thing you love doing as a hobby is music, and you start making music, and you pass the tape to some people?
All through high school, all through college, and even during my corporate career, I was doing everything with my DJ independently. So sometimes we would work with friends who had record labels, really independent record labels, and they would release things for us. But there was a moment where after that mixtape, we were recognized by local radio, college radio and independent radio. And the college radio station at UCI would play our music. A DJ by the name of Cheap Shot would play our music. And one of the fans of his radio show saved up money all summer to donate to us, to me in Exile, to record our first piece of vinyl. So this is like my senior year in high school. And
wow.
You know, that's a pretty amazing moment where the music is being recognized in a way that it's influencing and impacting people's lives, that they want to take their hard-earned money from like wherever they were working, some fast food restaurant, and donate it so that we could press our first vinyl, which then made it possible for DJs to play our music, more DJs to play our music at nightclubs and other radio stations. And, you know, eventually I had the opportunity then to travel and tour in Europe. When I graduated from university, it was the unfortunate event of September 11th that was supposed to be around the start date of my corporate employment. So my start date got pushed back, and I got an opportunity to travel to Europe to tour with some hip-hop artists. And one of the hip-hop artists on that tour was a producer by the name of Ono, and I recorded some music with him when I came back from Europe. And that music made it in the hands of the record label that signed him. Stone's Throw was an independent hip-hop label out of Los Angeles. Very, very well-respected hip-hop label. The kind of label that, you know, people around the world wouldn't even care what the artist was that they were releasing. They would just buy the music because they knew that it was going to be curated and they'd like it. So I recorded songs with Ono. One of the songs, I recorded an entire rap album, 15 tracks of rap. One of the beats that he gave me, I decided I would sing Sam Cooke's Change Is Gonna Come. It was that recording that piqued the interest of his record label. And they wanted to sign me as a vocalist because I was singing on that song. And so I figured, sure, why not? Let's try it. Between the time that I worked for a couple of years and that particular song made it into his label's hands, almost, you know, a year after or 2 years after I got laid off, they decided to sign me and gave me an opportunity to share, you know, a new representation of my artistry, which would be the songwriting that I could do outside of the hip-hop genre.
What did you say? 10,000 hours and as much sort of like people, right time.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It all stacked quite beautifully. I hope that happens for other artists like you.
I hope so too. You know, I think what it comes down to though is, you know, having fun with the music is really important. And when it becomes, you know, the stress of like trying to make it a career, that's when I think things become difficult. And I feel like I'm lucky because I didn't have that in my plan. It wasn't part of the plan, right?
Right.
And so I could just do it and have fun with it, and whatever came was icing on the cake. And,
right.
I
think there's something to that for sure.
Yeah.
So I love hearing those stories too, because they're inspiring in the sense that like it doesn't mean you have to be so rigid about like, I'm going to do music. Sometimes music finds you.
I feel like music keeps finding me. Like it won't leave me alone. And I feel at this point, I might as well do it because, you know, I have fun with it. People have fun listening to my songs. And I can still do it as a hobby and do other things as well.
I was listening to your record and your voice is so beautiful.
Thank you.
And should be shared with the world. So I'm glad you're in music and that you are sharing that part of you. I noticed from the background of where we're looking at you now, you're in a studio. Is this where you write alone? Like, do you kind of hole up in there, or is this just a different space somewhere?
Yeah, no, I write everywhere and anywhere. Happens to be just the home studio where I can record things.
Right.
And I do writing sessions from here, like virtually now during the pandemic, but usually I'm writing and recording elsewhere. Like I go to other people's studios and I write with another writer or a group of writers that I've worked with a lot, and then record demos and record final versions with the producer at the producer's home studio or something.
I know you're an activist. Can you share with us a little bit about Artivist Entertainment?
Yeah, Artivist Entertainment is an organization that I started with my wife and a few other really like-minded artists and friends. It's a company, but we run it like an organization. The goal is to support artists who use their voice for positive social transformation and who are activist-minded. So it's the combination between artist and activist. We support visual artists, dancers, musicians, filmmakers in creating works that will speak truth to power. And it's sort of our way of, encouraging artists to recognize the power of their voice and to continue the tradition of the artists that we look up to and that inspired us.
Amen. What is your form of activism? There's so many things going on in the world, obviously, and there's so many issues and causes and all of that. But for you personally, what is like the deepest action, soul force that you use out in the world?
I think mine is to be the light within the darkness. There's a lot of media in our world that is preying on the emotion of fear, and television media, film, lots of music that's violent, misogynistic, and depressing and full of anxiety. And then, lots of news media. So my goal is to create songs and music that can stand in opposition to that and offer people a place of comfort, a place of to relax, and a place to feel happy and joy. And so that's, symbolic activism. Some of the real direct activism that I'm doing is, making phone calls to senators, assembly members in the state, or congresspeople in Capitol Hill, to legal experts and, nonprofit organizations that are in the civil rights world to figure out how we can get some change in police reform and justice in the United States. And I've come to learn so much over the past few months since the murder of George Floyd, and how the system here is really set up in a way that does not value citizens, because some laws and rules have been established that we are just completely unaware of until recently has been coming out. There's this Supreme Court doctrine called qualified immunity. The highest court in our country, which sets precedent for all the other courts, basically says that, whatever police do doesn't matter. They're immune from any accountability for violating your civil rights. Point blank says it on paper. It's how is that possible? Yeah. So the job that we have is very, very difficult because the Supreme Court doesn't want to touch changing that rule. They would rather let the lawmakers handle the wording of the law. But the Supreme Court should change their interpretation of the rule because that's where the problem lies. They've somewhere back in the 60s, someone interpreted the law in a way that would make it impossible for civilians to get their remedy and make it impossible for police to be held accountable.
That has to change. I think about population-wise, and this goes back a little bit to what you're saying about how much negativity there is. Greater percentage of the population wants to be happy and their children to be safe, and they don't want laws that prohibit that. We're all so yearning for the same things, to be happy, not to suffer, for our children to be safe, for fresh food and water. Hearing you talk about qualified immunity, it's like, that's one of those things. We all just got to get on it. I still truly believe that, at least a tipping point's worth of the population can absolutely change the course of what looks like it's pre-decided. I just commend you and Maya for doing what you do and for talking about it. I have really one more question before we play a bit of your song, which I'm happy to share with everyone, which is there anything that you would like to share with the youth or our listeners or artists or politicians or anyone out there? Is there anything specifically that you just feel like we didn't touch upon that you would like to share?
Yeah. So this album that I've released, All Love Everything, is really there's elements in the album and in the songs where you can really tell what I'm doing. I'm being explicit, singing about my family and my parents, my kids. But like in the first song on the album called Family, there is the way that I choose the instrumentation and the rhythm also is part of the story. And so people ask me, what kind of music do I make? Am I a dance artist? And because I have the hit Wake Me Up. Am I a rapper because that's where I started? And do I do hip hop? Am I a soul artist? I think I do all of it. I'm doing all genres, and I'm using all these genres as part of the method of delivering a message. So in this song Family, because my family is from Central America and I grew up listening to salsa, I added in a very Latin rhythm so that the music itself, even without the lyrics and the vocal melody, the music itself is telling a part of the story of who my family is and who I am. And so I do that throughout the album in different ways. And it's not explicit. You'd probably require, me telling the world exactly what I did, but it's in there and it's part of the fabric of the song.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. And for everyone out there, get Aloe Blacc's record. Listen to it.
Hey, this is Aloe Blacc. You're listening to the LaunchLeft Podcast. And here's the title track from my new album, All Love Everything.
Is it just me? Or do you think about me like I think about you? Is it just me? Or does the world stop spinning when you step into the room? Cause I don't need no money when I'm walking with a diamond, looking like $1 million and you ain't even trying. First class, loving my high like we flying. That's how it be with you and me. It's like all of everything. I wanna wake up in the morning with a wedding ring. Doing anything with you is my favorite thing. Like the sweetest melody, you make my heart sing out like ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah. Ooh, 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 ooh. All of everything feels so good, like we floating on the ocean in the summer sunshine. Feels so good. Every kiss is so delicious, it could be the first time. We're the perfect storm when our bodies are colliding. Something supernatural like thunder after lightning. Even on the darkest day, you're my silver lining. That's how it be with you and me.
LaunchLeft aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. LaunchLeft begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.